Good morning, everybody. It's Friday and it's the last day of our dairy school. We will have 3 presentations today. The first will be Suretha Francis, then Dr. Dani Oorendal, and then a farmer, Niels Neetling, with Prof. Dirk Lourens, who will have a conversation. So welcome, and I hope you will enjoy the rest of the presentations. I will introduce Suretha Francis. So Suretha is a team leader and a specialist advisor at Studbook, and she's responsible for advising and interpreting milk records results to dairy farmers. And today Suretha will present the importance of records and record keeping in a dairy production management program. Suretha, thank you. I'm looking forward to your presentation, and I'm sure the rest of the participants as well. Thank you, Suretha.
Thank you, Eliana. I just quickly want to share my screen. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen. You can just maximize it now.
How do I do that?
To be a slideshow?
Oops. Let me just stop sharing because on my side...
No, it's fine.
On my side, it's a slideshow.
Okay, you can continue then.
Can you see it clearly, or should I try again?
Put it on.
Let me just quickly... Okay, so can you see everything now? Sorry, is it correct?
Not yet. It's not on the screen yet. Just start sharing again.
Okay, let's just go back. Sorry. Open tray. Okay, let me just quickly do it in full screen first. Screen share. That one. Share.
Okay.
Is it now?
Can see it.
Okay. All right.
You can see it.
Okay. As Eliana said, I'm talking about records and record keeping and the management thereof. The questions that you might ask is, why is record and record keeping important? Can you have too much data? What to do with the data? So what I'm going to try to do today is to join all the dots that we've collected thus far this week, all the speeches that we heard, the nutrition, the management, somatic cell counts, everything on that. I'm trying to put into a report and help you manage your herd. What I want to emphasize as well, and all the previous speakers said that as well, we must work in a group. It's not just the vet, it's the animal scientist, it's the nutritionist, it's the geneticist, and then you can get the financial people as well. But after this week, I'm sure all of you feel like this. You don't know what to remember and what to leave, and everything is important, and it's a lot of information. So if we go back to the dairy, with the herd sizes that's increasing, management is also very complicated. Kenneth has said this as well. The average herd size used to be 100. Now it's almost 600. So we've got fewer herds, but larger herds, and then the management gets more complicated. So what enables us to make the correct economical decisions then? Like when, what to do?
Sorry, Suretha, your slide is not moving. We're still on your first slide.
Can you see now?
We can see it, but as in a PowerPoint.
Should I rather quickly send it to you and then you can... Let me just try again. Is it showing now or not?
Okay, just move to your second slide.
I'm on the second slide already. So
Okay,
why is it
no,
not moving?
no, we can only see your first slide. Okay, now we can see your third slide.
Okay, so I'll just go on like this if that's fine.
Okay.
Sorry, I don't know what's wrong then. Okay, sorry. I hope it's okay. All right. So I've spoken about information now. So as you can see, and over the week, you can realize that there's so much information and there might be an information overload. So what is an information overload? Information overload is a problematic process of trying to understand something and make the right decision when we have too much information about what we're trying to decide. So you've seen this week, it's nutrition, it's management, it's things that happen on the farm. So we need to gather all that information. So I'm going to make a statement, which is you can't manage what you don't understand. And you can't understand if you don't measure. So what you don't measure, you can't control. So this is the beginning. You need to gather information to know where you are, to plan where you're going, and control things that happen. All right. But luckily, there are tools that can help us in this regard. And that's what we're going to do today. So where does data collection start? The buzzword today is big data, data analysis, and everything like that. So the few points that I'm going to touch on today is the computerized systems that is available on farm, the data capture and input, cow cards, action reports, performance analysis reports, and then the last bit is the value of milk recording. That is the coming together of all the data that we gather and make management decisions from then. All right. So successful herd management relies on good record keeping and on the information that we can derive from that. It's important that we just don't gather information and don't use it, because that's useless and it's taking your time and it's costing you money. So you need to use it. So data collected and recorded on sheets, but these days it's management programs. It can be on books, cards, and calendars. Must be converted to data that you can use in a format with real value. So the analyzed information then should be able to guide the farmer to take actions or make decisions for future planning and development in his herds. As I said, otherwise the recording system is not useful and it's costing you money. So I'm going to ask just one simple question that shows you the importance of data and record keeping. The question is, you can see it on the screen. Historically, how has the individual cow and the herd performed? How is the current performance of the individual cow and the herd? And what does the future hold for the individual cow and the herd? It's a simple question, but looking at this includes things like production, solid production, reproduction, udder health, all the things that we've spoken about this week. All right. So what kind of animal are we looking for? We are looking for silent cows. So you might ask me now, what is a silent cow? A silent cow is a cow that produces optimum. She gives you a calf every year. She doesn't have problems with mastitis or any other metabolic illnesses. She doesn't have high somatic cell count. She's a good and sound cow. So those are the animals that you want in your herd and you want to manage. You don't want the cows giving you problems. So we need to identify your silent animals in your herd as well. Okay, getting back to the software programs that the farmers use on the farm, it's very important that it should be practical, user-friendly, and affordable. I can promise you a farmer doesn't have the time to go and sit down and try to figure out how to put the data into the program, how to get the reports back. And I'm sure you as veterinarians don't have the time either. All right, so the programs, those three things is very important then on your management side. So the management programs that the guys use on the farms in South Africa, the three major ones is Alpro, Delpro from De Laval. We've got Cow Manager and Affimilk, Affifarm. Some of the speakers mentioned that this week as well. So these are the three main ones. But then we've got Dimsa, Planet, Agrimilk, Milkfriend, Trio Milk, and Divisa. So you as a veterinarian must familiarize yourself with these programs and the working of them. Okay, so once again, if you don't use data and the info, it's costing you money. So software training, checks and support are very critical important to ensure that systems are used to its full potential, and thus enabling your clients and yourself to obtain maximum return on their investment. So, yeah, sorry. Okay, so if we look at dairy management.
Okay, Suretha, you can continue.
Okay, so if we look at dairy management programs, there are three different types that is available. Okay, the first one then is a simple event and record display program. Okay, so this is just designed to keep and view the records. So yeah, the most of the guys aren't using that. They're more to the automated systems, but that is still in use. Then we've got a fully featured management program. It doesn't only keep records, but it gives action list and detail analysis. But the one that the guys are using more and more these days is the integrated management program. So this is a full featured management program that incorporates all the real-time data through sensors. That's the milk flow, your feeding systems. Kind of spoke about precision feeding in the milking parlor. They monitor the rumination of the cows, the feeding patterns. They take the weights, the body condition scores. So those are the programs that the bigger farmers use at this stage. Those, the Affis and the Delpro and the Alpro systems. Okay, so the basic components of a computer system consist then of clear animal identification. Some speakers spoke about the ear tags, the electronic sensors for Cow Manager, and so that's for the identification. And then the data capture and input. The daily events is either manual or automatically recorded. Manual is like your year detection, your AIs that you've done, the bulls that you've used on a cow, while the automatic ones is the data like the cow weight, body condition score, milk production. So you must just differentiate between the two. Then a detailed individual record if each animal is kept. You get management reports and activity lists, and then as well as detailed reports. So on the next slide, if we look at the flow of data and information, there's the data input side. It's important, it should be quick, simple, and error-free. Why we say error-free? You know the saying, garbage in, garbage out. If you put in data that's not complete or that's not right, you're not going to get make the right decision on the end. All right. As I said, data capture is either manual or automatic, depends on the event that's taking place. And then it also depends on the accuracy and completeness of the available data recorded. So once again, garbage in, garbage out. That's why it's very important that the data is kept very accurately and complete. So if we just look at basic data that is captured for fertility and which is needed on our reports that we'll discuss later on, it's things like the name and identity number, the date of birth, the lactation number. You've got your calving date and information about the sex, the identity of the calf, whether it was a difficult calving or not. You need your estrus dates, your heat periods observed with service, your service and AI dates and the bulls used, the guy that did the insemination and the type of heat behavior. What's also important is the pregnancy diagnosis, the date and result of that, and then you can get your expected calving date. And then very important, veterinary examinations and treatments as well. Okay, so just to continue on that, we've spoken about the dam's identity and lactation number, identity and calf heifer number, diseases and treatments we've spoken about, the weight and height and condition score, that's an automatic thing that comes in through your system if you've got it, the dates that the animal was served and the semen or the bull that was used. We spoke about the vaccination and dosing, and then the date of pregnancy diagnosis and the individual cow or heifer card. So if we look at the cow card, you get one in paper format, or you get your cow card that's on your management system. So what's the detail that's on your cow card? First thing is your pedigree data. Your pedigree data is of importance for your breeding values. We'll speak about the breeding values a bit later on. Your fertility data is on your cow card. Once again, veterinary examinations and treatments again, your general health, your mastitis, things like quarters affected, treatments that you've given the cow, the cultures taken, and the somatic cell counts, the weights, and then your production information like your milk yield and your milk quality and milk composition if you do milk recording as well. So your cow card is very nice. It's all the information on one page about a cow that you can see then. So as I said, all this information is very important for the calculation of breeding values of the animals. And why is breeding values important? You need to select your most economical cows to be parents for the next generation. So I said we're going to talk about action reports, but what is an action report? Action reports are there to select cows with some common characteristics and provide up-to-date information, all right? This then allows us planning and management of groups of cows on in the herd on a daily as well as a weekly basis, resulting in better herd management, all right? So there we get action list, worksheet, attention list, and checklists as well. So what do we do? The action report also identifies then a problem early, and that will limit the liters of milk lost as well as the decrease in the recovering period. Kenneth has spoken about milk loss and all the things that can cause that. You get your daily group milk weight and activity averages, as we said, and this also allows the farmer to identify a problem affecting a specific group or individual cows. It can be done immediately, and it will indirectly then assist with nutritional management as well. You'll see nutrition and all the management things, it's multifactorial and affecting everything in your herd in the end. Okay, so you can monitor your trends, also allowing you to implement preventative measures, and then the overall health of the herd is measured on individual cow basis as well. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly name a few examples of actions report that we use in management. You can make an action report for cows more than 320 days of milk, cows that's been AI'd more than 3 times, cows that's not pregnant, cows that's fresh in milk, they need separate management, cows with milk yields less than 15 kgs, cows that's due for culling, cows that's not for breeding, and then also heifers older than 16 months and not pregnant. You want to get that heifer pregnant as early as possible. You don't want her to be riding on the back of the other milking cows. She must pay for her account. All right. So going to performance analysis data, we use the milk production and quality. We look at health, we look at fertility and nutrition. And these are all topics that was spoken about by our previous speakers this week as well. So now you know this is really the important stuff and stuff we can manage. So The big aim of capturing and analyzing and interpreting animal data is to increase the biological and economic efficiency of the farming operation. Okay, so performance needs to be measured against set objectives. It is impossible to make calculated changes in herd management without the analysis of herd data. So in short, what that says is if you don't measure, you can't manage it. All right, so management is very, very important, but you need to measure as well. So why performance data? What is the value in that? It supports our management decisions. We monitor the performance and we can identify and quantify problem areas then in the herd. So, monitoring is the routine, systematic collection and evaluation of information, as we said before, that's on farm. And then the critical control points for dairy farm profitability that should be monitored, and I'm sure you know this, but it includes the following. It's the milk production and quality, your udder health, your general health, your reproductive performance, and then your calves and replacement heifer health and growth. Kenneth has spoken about this as well, but we'll have some more examples in our reports just a little bit later on in the presentation. Just to say that we give you data back on scatter graphs, bar charts, histograms, lactation curves, just so that you know these different formats available as well. So I'm sure you know this, but I'm just going to go through it quickly with you again. The reports then can be effectively used to pinpoint problems regarding cow health, how cows are fed, managed, and bred. It might be indicating problems such as the following, but this will also be discussed in the milk recording, as I said. It's things like poor initial milk production, failure to reach your peak production, reaching peak yield late in lactation, or dropping yield sharply after reaching peak yield. So in the back of your mind, you should start asking questions now. Why is this? Did the cows calve down with enough reserve? Are their intakes what it should be? Are they possibly milking off their backs? Why is this happening? So you must formulate now, and we said it's multifactorial, so it's more than one thing that can affect that. But we need to pinpoint why that is happening. If we look at our somatic cell counts, it can be indicative of subclinical mastitis, but also any kind of stress on the animal. If I talk about stress, it might be heat stress, it might be nutritional stress, it might be mud stress. So we need to go back and observe. I think some of the previous speakers mentioned that as well. Observe, observe, observe. And then the other thing I want to say is listen to what the cows tell you, all right? Then with regard to milk composition, it can also indicate problems such as low protein and butterfat, which is part of your nutrition. I'll discuss that in the milk management reports as well. Just in short, protein is an indication of energy generation, while butterfat is an indication of effective fiber. So if we can just go quickly back to the health data, we need to manage proactively. And I think Dr. Inge-Marie Petzer mentioned that yesterday as well. We need to be proactive and not reactive. So we need to do routine checks for environmental diseases like mastitis, etc., nutritional diseases like metabolic diseases such as milk fever, acidosis, and ketosis. We've got that in reports as well. We will discuss that. We've got bloat, lameness, infectious diseases, and then parasitic diseases as well. Okay, just to set a few limits or in the crude indices for health data on a dairy farm, things that you can set is, for instance, you don't want cow mortalities to be more than 2% per year. You don't want to be your crude culling rate to be higher than 25% per year. Your forced culling rate, for instance, for mastitis, fertility, others, you don't want it above 10 to 15% per year. Incidence of clinical mastitis, you don't want more than 2% of cows per month. Ketosis 5 to 10% for the cow's fresh and milk. You don't want to go over that. And incidences of lameness below 5% per month of cows per month. So you can see, if you collect the data and you set your limits, you can measure yourself whether you're falling within those limits, and if not, what is the problem? Okay, on the health data, we've Dr. Inge-Marie spoken about mastitis. You know, it's the most important health problem in dairy herds. The moment a cow is under stress, the somatics go up. We need to monitor the incidences of clinical mastitis then. We've got a good indicator on your bulk milk somatic cell count. We must just be careful, as this is an average. I know all of the farmers doesn't test individual cows, so your bulk tank is your only indication at that stage. So that's good to use it, but we must take note that it's an average. So there can be cows that's got somatic cell counts in millions, or cows with very low cell counts. All right, so the golden standard is to do individual cow somatic cell counts. But as I said, not everybody does that. The ideal is to do it. But otherwise, you can just use your bulk tank. All right. We know that somatic cell count is a sensitive indicator for udder health. So just to look at some parameters that is set, we know that if you go over 750 somatic cell count, your udder health is inadequate and you've got a serious problem. And I can promise you, if your somatic cell count goes over 500,000, your milk buyer won't take your milk either. All right. And you must note that the farmer gets paid for somatic cell counts. He gets a premium if it's below a certain number of cells. I think it's 200,000. I'm not sure. And they also pay penalty if the somatic cell count is very high. So if you don't manage your cell counts, you get penalized, and it's got an economical effect on your farm then. Right, just quickly back to fertility data. As we know, reproduction is the area which has traditionally received most attention in dairy programs, as it provides a basis for measurement of management efficiency through an analysis of multifactorial aspects. That's where we said feeding, breeding, everything is interrelated, and all the aspects that's affected. So many factors affect reproductive performance. I've said now the farming system, feeding efficiency, management, milk production, and then the general health as well. So let's just look at herd data, the structure and the composition. The herd structure is always influenced by the calving pattern of the herd and the overall management efficiency, and then the reproductive performance as well. Okay, a few factors that influence that is the number of animals in the herd, the ratio of milking cows to calves and heifers, the ratio of lactating to dry cows. We're looking at a ratio of about 84 to 16% in milk to dry. Okay, the age structure, that's the lactations. I'll give an example of the age structure now. Then we've got the lactation distribution. That's now early, mid, or late lactation. That plays a huge role in seasonal calving herds. All right, so your animals might be all early lactation or all late lactation. And then the average length of the lactation as well. If you can see on the screen, this herd has got 1,017 cows, but they've only got a few heifers, 223, I think, but they've got over 400 3+ lactation cows. So this is an older herd. So this guy must see to replace those older animals with the younger animals. Okay. Coming back to secondary reproductive parameters that we also use, we'll see in the Logic Sync reports as well. It's stuff like your general conception parameters, your cumulative conception rate, your pregnancy rate, and heat detection parameters. Okay, so we need to record all that to derive information that we can use for management. So if we heard a lot about nutrition this week as well, and we know that the feed cost makes up the majority of your input costs in your dairy enterprise. It is therefore the importance of feeding cannot be overemphasized. So we know that nutritionists use various computer models to formulate rations. But now there's a practical thing. There's 4 rations, all right. You might ask, how do I get to that? I'm going to tell you now. It's the ration that the nutritionist formulates, all right? Then there's the ration that gets mixed in the mixer wagon. Then there's the ration that gets put in front of the cows in a TMR herd. And then there's the ration that the cows eat. So it's 4 different rations. Kenneth told us about the example where they had to put in maize silage and they put in maize meal, and it made a huge difference. It had a huge effect. So yeah, we need to look at those 4 rations, that it's the same ration in the end, that it's not the 4 different ones. Okay. What Kenneth also mentioned, that what they take into account when formulating a ration was the cow requirements, your targeted milk production and the solids, your environmental effects, and then also the information that is available on the raw materials that they've got. I'll give an example on the raw material as well in an energy situation that we had, but I'll get to that in some of the slides. So due to the primary influence of nutritional milk production, the weight, the growth rate of heifers, the fertility and overall herd health, all the reports discussed in this next session relate directly or indirectly to nutrition, all right? So nutrition once again, and I think Kenneth emphasized that as well, but also what's going on the farm is going to affect the nutrition. So as I said, the ration might be formulated correctly, but something happens on the farm and that's not the ration that the animals get, all right? So in our next part, we collected all the data. We did the milk recording where we take milk samples of every cow every 5 weeks and we analyze it. So then we need to use that data as well for our management. So all the area of dairy herd management are ultimately reflected in our milk production, as you said previously. So the keeping of good milk records help to monitor the efficiency of management, which I mentioned just now, while it gives us a better understanding of fertility and health conditions as well. So as you gathered this week, there's a complex interrelationship between all the factors, and emphasis must be focused on multifactorial nature of milk production and the adoption of a holistic approach. I think Kenneth and Prof. Inge-Marie Petzer also emphasized that we need to take a holistic approach. You can't just focus on one thing because everything is influenced by many factors, all right? So therefore, the value of proper milk recording is relevant and essential for these integrated concepts of dairy animal breeding, nutrition, as well as health management. All right, so once again, at this point, starting at milk recording, I want to emphasize the fact that we need to work together again. I'm an animal scientist. I'm not a nutritionist or a vet. So I will be able to pinpoint some issues on farm to you, but we need to work together to solve those issues. All right, so we need to work together as a team. I'm going to show you some practical examples, what we've seen on farms, what we interpret from that. But I might oversimplify the situations, but that is where we need to work together as a team and not oversimplify the stuff. I'm just doing it to illustrate the scenarios to you today. So milk recording consists of 2 pillars, the management side and then the breeding values. So on the management side, what we do or what we look at is the production, the feeding management, reproduction management, general health, udder health and milking machine, and then the hygiene. On your breeding value side, that's all the data gathered once again. We need to determine the genetic value of your herd. From the genetic values, you then can set up a breeding objective where you want to go genetically with your animals. You can do accurate heifer selection. You can do cow selection, bull selection. We've got a nice program, SA Dairy Bulls, that's got all the information, all the pedigrees, all the production data on that, where you then can go and mate your animals to certain bulls and see what the breeding values of that matings might be. And then also with the breeding of bulls. So with milk recording, you can quickly identify cows which are more profitable or more efficient. We've got an efficiency index now, and that efficiency index works on the body size, the weight of the cow, the milk produced, and the solids produced. So we want the more efficient cows, all right? We can also identify and isolate cows with subclinical mastitis, high somatic cell count. We identify the cows with the optimal milk production. I think Kenneth mentioned as well, we don't want to go for maximum production always. We want to go for optimal milk production. Then we know the butterfat percentage and protein percentage of each cow, and I'll show you why that is important. And we also need know which cows to breed, which ones are genetically superior. Then there's also, I don't know how much of a role it still plays, but it increases the sale value of surplus stock. Buyers will pay more for milk recorded animals where you've got the data, where you've got the genetics behind that, all right? We can also identify poor performing cows that are not paying for their whey or covering their feed costs. They need to be culled. You can't carry animals, riding all the other animals back on your farm. You need to farm economically. If you've got expansion plans with quota goings, you need to know which cows to breed for maximum profit, and milk recording helps with that. And we've spoken about the SEC, cows that's repeat offenders, chronic conditions. We've spoken about the processor bonuses and penalty schemes as well. So if we look at the milk recording, feeding, breeding, and health, okay, in the milk, what we analyze for, the milk components that is analyzed is the protein percentage, the butterfat percentage, lactose, MUN, and the somatic cell count. So why do we analyze it for that? On the management side, the protein percentage is a rough indication of your energy in your ration, all right? As I said earlier, the butterfat is an indication of your effective fiber. Lactose is an indication of stress on animals if it goes below a certain level. Milk urea nitrogen is the crude protein in your ration, and your somatics we know is your udder health. So as you can see, milk recording information is essential for efficient management of dairy herds because so much of the critical factors for success are being reflected in milk records. We also said earlier on, and I think you know it as well, none of the factors that have an influence on milk yield is independent, but they are all interrelated. So a good understanding of these interactions will help us to understand the complexity of the milk production then. So what influences milk yield? I'm sure you know all this stuff, but I'm just going to highlight it again. We know that the breed and the genetics affects your milk yield. Your herd structure, is it more heifers? Is it more older animals? That will affect the milk production. Your stage of lactation, if you've got a seasonal calving herd, if all your cows are late lactation cows, your milk yield will be lower. Hi, can you still hear me? Okay, so going on, there's the age of the cows. The nutrition that we've spoken about the whole week.
Sorry, Suretha, I just want to ask the participants just to make sure that you are muted because you interfere with the presenter and her presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Elena. Okay, so we've spoken about the stage of the lactation, the age of the animals. We've spoken about nutrition, and we're going to speak about again. Your udder health, if you've got high somatic cell counts, you've got a drop in production, you've got cost for treating those animals. Your reproductive performance influences your milk yield, the days open. There's environmental factors like season, heat, stress, and stuff like that. So what we said, we give individual lactation curves for the cows. We give curves for the whole herd or per lactation group, which then can be effectively used to pinpoint problems, how cows are managed, fed, and bred once again. As we know, early lactation is also a very complex period. How well cows and heifers are freshened and made the transition period into early lactation is critical. I want you to remember this fact because we're going to discuss it in some of the reports that we're going to do now. And then the other one that you must also keep in mind is the dry cow management and the condition and the health of the cows at calving. That's also a critical point. And I always ask the question, when does the lactation start? And most of the guys will answer me and tell me that the day that the cow calves down. I usually disagree because I say the day that you dry up that cow is the day that the next lactation starts. So the dry cow treatment is of utmost importance. If you don't treat your dry cows well, she won't come into lactation as she must with a condition and she doesn't produce and you ask why. It's because you're not treating your dry cows the correct way. So I'm just going to go into some examples now. As I say, I might be oversimplifying this, but I just want to illustrate the data and the interpretation behind that and how you can use it then on farm to get to certain problems. Okay, the first graph that we've got here, you've got your days of milk and your milk production. So there's your milk production, there's your days of milk. The days of milk is broken down into 50 days increments. The red line is then your days of milk, your herds. So you can see this herd has got a problem. There's more than 25% of the animals that's over 300 days of milk. So there's a reproductive problem. You must go and have a look now. What is the problem? As we said, it's multifactorial, so you need to take into account a lot of stuff. It might be feeding, it might be an oversupply of crude protein, it might be a deficiency in energy, it might be environmental stress, or it might be something like the inseminator isn't doing his job well, or heat observation isn't up to par. So we can pinpoint something, but we need to go back to the farm and observe what is going on. And that's a huge thing. I think somebody spoke this week about consultation. This is also very important. If you want to consult with farmers, you need this detail. You need to know what's going on. And as we said, get onto the farm and observe. If I can just, here's now 3 graphs. A thing that I want to illustrate to you is your compensatory growth of your first lactation animals. All right, we know first lactation animal is still growing herself while producing. So what we want for a first lactation cow is to have a more flat production curve. These are our production curves on the screen, sorry. What you see on the first graph, you can see the productions of the first lactation animals drop after, say, 100 days of milk. On the second graph, they just go down all the way. They just going down. The third graph is more the ideal where there's a flat curve. So remember I said you must keep in mind what's going on in the farm. That dry cow treatment, the questions that you need to ask with these graph, what is causing this? Is the intakes there? Are the animals milking off their backs? Do they come into the lactation with not enough reserves? So that's where we say we pinpoint, but we need to go back and find out what the problem on the farm is. This one specifically is the body reserves. You can see it's just going down all the way, all the age group animals. Once again, the green is the first lactation, second lactation is blue, and the red ones are 3+ lactation. But you see, the first lactation animals not completing with enough reserves. It has a snowball effect on your second lactation animals and your second lactation on your third. So it doesn't only influence your first lactation. Those first lactations, when they get into the second lactations, is also influenced by the previous lactations. So it's influencing the now, but also the future. If we look at the next curve, it is once again milk production, also green first, blue second, and the older animals are the red ones. But what's bothering me on this graph, if you see there's such a big variation in the production of the animals in the same stage of the lactation. So that's a big problem to me. And there we need to start asking the questions again. Is it perhaps that there's not enough feeding space? You're overstocking. I think Kenneth spoke about that as well. So your big animals, the dominant ones, will go eat first, and they will make sure that they get the food, and the smaller animals, less dominant ones, will stand back and they will just get the scraps in the end. Then also, is there maybe selection taking place? The feed might be too fine, the roughage might be too long, so the animals can select. So the strong eaters will get the pudding, and then the less dominant animals will only get the roughage. So we need to go and look on farm, why is this happening? Once again, we need to observe what is going on. So with milk records reflecting a drop in milk yield, if we take it over 5% for your tank, or on average a drop of bigger than 10% in each individual cows, it can be an indication or a prediction of metabolic problems in the herd. Okay. Once again, multifactorial, it can be directly or indirectly by management or other health problems. And then also it can indicate possible fertility problems. And I think Kenneth spoke about that as well this week. So yeah, everything just comes together. All right. So the main factors that can cause a sudden drop in milk yield are then sudden changes in management, particularly new nutrition that we've seen. That's almost immediate with the examples that Kenneth gave us this week. Sudden climate changes, a heat wave coming, then the animals, they don't eat as well, the intakes is not there. Then we've got diseases like mastitis, ketosis, acidosis. And then a very important thing as well is your water supply. If your animals don't have water, they won't produce. It's important to have a water trough when animals get outside of the milking parlor, and as soon as they get into the camps as well. But you must make sure that water flows enough to fill up those troughs immediately almost, so that there's not stages that there's not enough water for the animals. So in our reports, we've also got metabolic disorders that we can indicate. Ketosis, that's early lactation. You know that energy demand is very big in your early lactation. So it's got to do with your intake and your energy demand, but we can pinpoint the animals. There's also possible risk of acidosis. That's got to do with your effective fiber, your butterfat percentage. As Kenneth also said, check the manure, make sure if there's anything changes there, we need to react immediately. So we know milk buyers pay for milk production, the milk volumes. I think that's the biggest drive at this stage. but the farmers also get paid for milk components. So milk components has also got an economic effect, but we see, we'll see in the reports, it's important for management as well, and indirectly, not even just on the milk price, it can cost you money and steal the money from your pockets. So what is the milk components? 87% consists of water, 5% lactose, 3 to 4% milk protein, with the Jersey sitting at 3.8, Holstein 3.2, Ayrshire 3.4, the milk fat between 3 to 5%, Jersey sitting at 4.9, Holstein 3.9, and then the Ayrshire at 4.4%. So we'll discuss lactose, butterfat, milk protein, and MUN. As I said previously, lactose is a stress indicator, butterfat is effective fiber, protein is your energy, and MUN is milk urea nitrogen. Once again, I'm going to oversimplify the situation, but you as veterinarian and we as nutritionists and animal science need to work together and see where that problem starts. All right. Firstly, if we quickly look at lactose, this is the lactose percentage in days of milk. You'll see there's groups of animals with low lactose. We want lactose to be above 4.8. If it goes below, we know the animals are stressing. Once again, it might be nutritional, it might be intakes, it might be stress on the animal, seasonal mud stress, it might be high somatic cell counts. So we need to get back and see what causes that problem. If we just go quickly to butterfat percentage, which is an effective fiber in a ration, the first graph is your protein butterfat ratio. The red line is the ideal, the blue line is where the herd is lying. If I see something like this, I will immediately react and say it might be effective fiber deficiency. But it might be on the farm that the roughage is too long or it's too short, so there's no effective fiber, or the intakes is just not there. So we need to identify what the cause of the problem is. You can see this one is the butterfat percentage scatter graph. Low butterfat percentages, we need to find out why this is like this. The third graph is just the indication of a specific group of animals having a problem. You can see the first lactation animals has got very low or low butterfat percentage. So that we can go to the group and have a look. Is the animals with the bigger animals, with the dominant animals, they don't get what they need and the intakes are not there. Other factors affecting effective fiber, I think the previous speakers has also spoke about it. Acidosis, meninsin, heat stress, the season, all factors affecting your butterfat percentage. Then I also would like just to mention here your pasture herds, the growth phases of your pastures. There's different nutritional values in there. So that might also play a big role in your butterfat and your protein percentages. All right, if we just quickly go to your protein percentages, negative energy balance, we know there's a huge energy demand when the cow calves down. So it's important that she's in the right condition when she calves down. That's where the dry cow management comes in. The first graph is protein butterfat percentage ratio again. There you can see it's below the ideal. So I'll say that's a negative energy balance, but you can see that it corrects itself there. With a negative energy balance, what we want to do is we want to turn it as early as possible in lactation. So the second graph, you can see it turns at about 70 days of milk, so that's good. But the third graph, the negative energy balance continues to about 120 days, which is quite long. And you won't get those cows into calve again. So that's costing you money fertility-wise, but nutritionally as well. And the health of the animals, they're milking off their backs. If we just go to your protein energy deficiency, you can see right through the lactation, the herds is below the average, and you can see the low protein percentage as well. But once again, we need to go look at different factors affecting that, the energy, the season, the intakes, the MUNs. Because if the MUNs are high, the energy is used to break down the crude protein, and it's not used for milk production. So once again, multifactorial, we need to look at different things, not just one thing at a time. Then if we look at MUN, we see that's a indicator of crude protein. This is very high MUN. I can tell you, you won't get those cows into calf either. What MUN does, it changes the pH of your uterus, so the embryo can't attach, and the cow comes into heat to see it cycles later again. So it's costing you money. Protein is expensive to feed. But if we look at this graph, protein is on this side and MUN is on this side. We want your animals to be in this block. If it's below the line, I said it's an energy deficiency and there's an oversupply in crude protein. So we can play around and see what is actually causing it. We must just remember fertilized pastures. If you fertilize pastures, you don't put in your cows in those camps before 21 days, otherwise you're going to run into troubles. After 21 days, they can go in again. Just quickly on somatic cell count, I see I'm running out of time. Prof. Ingram Marie has covered this quite well. We've got graphs that can quickly show us that there's a problem. You can see on this graph, all the animals has got high somatic cell counts. There's only a few animals below 100,000. So I can say this is a huge problem in the herd, and all the animals are affected. All right, we need to get behind the problem, what is going on. This graph is more ideal, but what is catching my eye is that there is first lactation animals with high somatic cell counts. So we need to find out, are those animals possibly under stress? Just quickly, functioning of the milking machine, Prof. Petzer spoke about that. We've got graphs. You can see this one, the longer the animals are in lactation, the higher somatic cell count. So that's why I'll say maybe this might be the milking machine, but as you know, it might be vacuum, it might be pulsation, it might be filters, anything like that that Prof. Petzer spoke about, or even over milking. Just quickly to emphasize why we just don't look at one graph. We've spoken about the first lactation animals with a higher somatic cell count. But if you go to that herd's lactose percentage, you can see those animals also have got a lower lactose. Once again, if your immune system is down, the milking of the backs, you can get higher somatic cell counts and then lower lactose. A nice list we've got is the SEC proportional. That is your SEC contribution to your bulk tank sample. The first one is a very extreme example. It's 200 cows. But you can see there's 3 animals contributing 51% of your somatic cells into the tank. While in the second one, it's a bigger herd, it's more normal. There's 30 animals contributing 50% to your bulk tank. Okay, just quickly to touch on something new that's available, the Logic Sync report. It's a program from SA Studbook where data is automatically sent from the farm software to SA Studbook, where reports is compiled on a weekly basis with action lists. Just a few action lists there is completed lactations, heifers older than 2 years, that's not in calf, ready for PD, not inseminated, not pregnant, longer than 55 days dry, cows under pressure, we give the possible acidosis and ketosis, and then we identify the animals with a high somatic cell counts. This is just the example of completed lactation. We give you a persistency and we give you a economic index as well. Heifers older than 2 years, you'll see the bottom ones are the problem ones. These ones have got expected dates. Those ones haven't been confirmed that they're in calf. You don't want heifers that old and still not in calf. Cows not inseminated. We put the weights down there as well if it's available. You can immediately see if they're going down. You won't get those cows into calf. So we need to find out what the problem is. Just cows over 55 days of milk. These ones has been period and they've been confirmed. Long intercalving period. This one has got an intercalving period 506 days, but it's marked not for breeding. So we know he's not going to breed that cow again. Cows under pressure, that's the cows with the low lactose, high somatic cell count. And then the high somatic cell count ones, the repeats, you get the red dot behind the animal. Then just quickly coming back to the herd structure and the fertility, we show you the herd structure. What I want to show you on this one, it's only heifers, but you can immediately see there was a problem. The age group 6 to 18 months, there's only just over 40 animals, where the rest, 24 months, there's 231, 81, 144. So there is a problem. Did the calves die? What happened with that heifer rearing? And then also, at first glance, what catches my eye, age at first calving, your pregnant heifers. The age at first calving is older than all your other animals. So there is definitely a problem. Quickly jumping to the cows, you can see this is an older herd, so that's just a bit alarming. We've spoken about cows dry and milk. This one is 90 to 10. We spoke about 80-20, so there's a problem. Other thing that we identified, you see your first lactation animals, Studbook perception is 3.7. They're supposed to be the lowest. If you compare them to your older animals, it's 3.37. So there's definitely a problem with your heifers. If we just go to days to first heat, the first lactation animals, it takes longer. The first days to first insemination, first lactation longer. Days to conception, first lactation is longer. So there's definitely something wrong with those first lactation animals. Just quickly on the breeding side, the genetic levels, we said you need to know where you are to know where you're going. We give you genetic reports. We give you the genetic level of the herd, so you know which bulls to use. We give you the trends, your herd compared to the breed. We give you the individual cow breeding values. Then we give you, if you do genomics, genomics, as they spoken about earlier, it gives you the tool to select animals with higher reliability early in their life. But I want to make the remark, in the world of genomics, phenotype is still king. So we still need those measurements. All right. I quickly want to illustrate to you how we do the genomics, and then how is it possible for us to select the animals at a younger age. In South Africa, we use the single-step genetic evaluation. So we use the measurements, the pedigrees, and then the genomic tests to get our GEBVs. That's our genomically enhanced breeding values. Okay, this is now where the advantage comes in, where you can select at a younger age. It's all about reliability. So on our older blood models, when a calf is born, we use a parent average for as breeding value for that calf, but the accuracy of those breeding values was only 30%. So if we add offspring there, it goes up to 60%. Okay, so now with genomics, we gain almost a generation. If you see, we use the pedigree data once again, we use the parent average, accuracy is 30%, but then we add the genomic test of that young animal. And the accuracy then jumps to 54%. So it's almost the same as if you've got your first offspring. And then when the offspring gets added, it jumps up to 90%. So that is your single most biggest advantage of using genomics then. All right, so the accuracy of your breeding values is higher. Just a quick example there, there's a young bull 2019 born, already no daughters tested, 48% accuracy. We give you single gene traits. I know, I'm sure you know about that, the haplotypes, DGAT, that is milk fat, A2 milk. There's just the older bull that's got a 184 and 98% accuracy. Okay, what I want to illustrate on this slide, you can see, sorry, just go back. Oh, this animal is an A2 milk, so that's good. But it's a carrier of the Jersey haplotype 1. That's an unwanted gene. It influences your fertility. So we don't want to breed with those animals. So you can do precision breeding, selecting animals for specific goals. All right, just quickly, pedigree depth. We said we need to record the pedigrees. Why is that important? It's important to calculate your inbreeding. Just an example on SA Dairy Bulls, how deep the pedigrees go. So you can see there's many generations in there. We give you selection indices just to make it easier to select animals. You can see this is quite a good animal. All the indices is lying on that side. But if we go to the production traits, you might think again, linear traits and then other health traits. Once again, just the single genes, what I've mentioned. So this is now a lot of information I give you, and I'm sure over the week you feel like it's an information overload. But the saying is, without effective use of data and information available to you, you are literally milking cows in the dark. So effective use of data will bring light to that darkness, and it will only help you helping your clients. I thank you.